everybody. I'm Michelle Sheely, your queen of culture. Welcome to CPG Therapy, where we'd help you take the curd out of your culture. So today we are going to be talking about self-doubt. You know that feeling that just feels like cement is drying in your boots, completely paralyzing you and keeping you from taking the next necessary steps in action toward your goal, your project, whatever it is. It is the fuel that fuels procrastination, that self-doubt. Everybody experiences it. I want you to know that you are not alone. So today I have a very special guest that I am so excited about. My guest today is a CEO for one of the #1 plant-based milk companies in the country. He's one of the best CPG leaders in the industry. He was a GM for Sovos Brands. He was a VP of sales for Mike's Hard Lemonade. Today, I want to welcome our guest, a culture king in the industry, the CEO of MALK Organics, Jason Bronstad. Jason, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on.
Michelle, thanks so much for doing this as a service to other people and helping them to understand that they're not alone.
Oh, thank you so much. My intention for the CPG community and calling the show CPG Therapy in general is just to help people see the human side of CPG, everything that we go through, and so that people can be seen and know that we all experience the same things when it comes to building a brand and that they are not alone.
That is the truth. We are all going through something in some way, shape, or form. And, leadership is lonely. It's lonely as a founder for many people. And just understanding that there's people around you that have walked in your same path will be helpful for many, I believe.
Absolutely. And leadership is lonely. I'll do an episode on this later on. I call it finding your Wilsons. So leadership can be very isolating and remote work can be isolating. So think of it as Tom Hanks from whatever that movie was. I forget the name. Castaway, from Tom Hanks from Castaway. And he had his Wilson. And I always say, find your Wilsons, find those people who help you not feel so isolated and alone, because leadership can be really lonely at times.
Very much so.
But today we are going to be talking about self-doubt. So I saw, and it wasn't an article, but just a post that you had wrote about self-doubt. And I thought, if someone like Jason Bronstad can feel self-doubt, and even the grocery store clerk packing the groceries can feel self-doubt, I want everybody to know that they are not alone. So thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about self-doubt today. So I want to know, when did self-doubt first show up for you on your CPG journey? I mean, you're building MALK Organics, which is a huge brand. It's, one of the #1 plant-based milks, out there on the shelf. And you would think somebody like Jason would not experience self-doubt. So I want to know, how did it show up for you and how did you manage it?
So, the reality is no matter who you are, where you are in a company, we're all humans at the end of the day. And the talk track that we have playing inside of our mind is the one that we hear the most. So negative self-talk begets negative self-talk, begets negative self-talk. And the first time I really felt really big self-doubt in my career is when I got out of big CPG almost a decade ago now, and I joined a startup. And in that startup, I'm like, I'm bringing all this incredible experience. I just left Mark Anthony brands. We were launching White Claw. One of my last meetings was the formulation decision for White Claw. And I'm like, I'm going to go do this startup thing because I've done this for long enough. I know what to do. No. There is absolutely nothing. I truly believe this, that can prepare you for the chaos that ensues when you join a pre-revenue startup. Despite all the institutional knowledge you may have, I walked in and we faced UPC issues. We faced negative formulation feedback. We had almost 30 grams of sugar per 12-ounce can. We had packaging breakdowns. And then we had a flaw in the financial model. Like, we had it all.
Right.
So walking in, it's like, I just said to myself, did I just blow this? Like, did I just really destroy my career trajectory? by stepping into this and honestly not knowing how to fix half of this, it was a
Right.
gut punch. Like it hurt my ego bad.
Yeah, it can. I experienced the same thing. I worked for Hain Celestial and I managed Greek gods. And you think that's, $100+ million brand. It was a very big brand for Hain. And when I went to St. Benoit, it was a startup that they needed a quote unquote dairy expert to come in. I realized that it is very different coming from big corporate to going to a small startup, completely different skill set. And I went through that. I mean, I call it cement boots, where it's almost like they're hardening, preventing you from taking the next steps. And it was the same thing with my ego as well. I was like, how am I going to be able to do this? Are they going to find out that I'm not a dairy expert? But I realized I did know enough, but I was also learning as I went and doing things on the fly. So how did you manage it for yourself? Like, how did you get yourself out of that and kind of heal your ego and fix the situation?
It took a long time. I mean, that was a decade ago, and I I lived with some of that trauma through my time with that company and into the next company as well. And the biggest thing I've learned is it's not about you; it's about the team that you build around you. Not
Mhm.
only professionally, but personally as well. What is your community? What is your Wilson? I love that analogy earlier. The Wilson reference from Castaway, beautiful. Um, I found a group of men that I was able to commiserate with, in a group I'm a part of called Front Row Dads, and these are other
Awesome.
high performing, high ego. A lot of them are
Hi.
entrepreneurs. So
Right.
I was sitting there going, "Hey, I'm just a W-2 dad." So I'm already negative self-talk again. All right. I'm
Right.
talking like, y'all are these successful entrepreneurs. Some of y'all have retired in your 30s. And here I am trying to
Mhm.
make it every day and provide for my family. And, once I began to work on me on the inside, I was able to show up better at home, which in turn helped me to show up better at work. I
Right.
spent a lot of time, Michelle, going back and forth, putting masks on, like, hey, here's Jason's work mask. This is who I am going to show up at work today. Oh,
Right.
here's the board mask for Jason. This is how I'm going to show up to the board of directors. Oh, here's the dad mask. I'm blessed with two amazing kids. My daughter would be 13 next month. My son's 9.5. And I've been married to my bride for 20 years. Like, I was showing up as a
Congratulations.
different person who I thought each one of them wanted to see me as, but I didn't know who I wanted to see me as. I didn't know how to love myself. I didn't know how to show up and say, who I woke up as this morning is exactly who I'm supposed to be, and I love who I am.
How did you get there?
Uh,
What was your process?
so I learned about somatic breath work, and it's an
Okay.
incredible modality. There are people that it is truly just breath work with a coach slash therapist, and you can actually get into a very deep meditative state. And for me, and for many people that I know that have experienced this, there's the ability to unlock trauma, to unlock, either true beliefs that you want to bring up and recognize, or false beliefs. I think that people, and I generally say men, but I think it is all people generally compress, suppress, and repress emotions. Okay,
Right.
I'll just put this on. I'll take it in. I can handle this as a leader. Okay, that's hurting. That's stressful. I'll take that away from sales. Oh, ops is having a struggle. I'll take that on. I'll take that on. And all of a sudden, your entire emotional capacity is taken up by holding on to stuff for other people.
Right.
So until you find a way to actually release that, to actually be able to show up and say, I can hold space for you to process this, but I'm not going to take it from you. I can hold space. We can talk through it, but my modality is no longer, let me take that and I'll fix it, because I
Right.
continue to try and work to find the right people.
Right. Well, and you also need people that on your team too that have the capacity to carry what they need to carry, but also learn to let go. Like when I, just for a metaphor, when I was in the wilderness program, I did wilderness therapy for a while in between CPG, and your backpack, what you carried, was a symbol for how much you needed to let go. And one day I showed up for a 9-day rotation with change in my pocket, coins. And I was so angry because I'm going to have to carry these coins that have absolutely no value on the journey this entire way. And it's not a lot of weight, but the fact that they were there and they were unnecessary, I had to carry. So it's learning how to carry what is necessary and let go of what is unnecessary. So how do you do that, especially with a team?
It's the space and the container in which you meet has to be free enough to everything can be put on the table. The
Right.
worst thing, and I am guilty of this through so much of my career, is the meeting after the meeting.
The meeting
No.
after the meeting, exactly.
No, you can't have those, and then there's the pre-meetings. I mean, when I was at big CPG on the monthly, S&OP call, you had your pre-meeting with operations, you had your pre-meeting with marketing, then you had your pre-meeting with sales, and then you went to the meeting, and then you had your post-meeting. It's like, if we actually trusted each other, and if we actually held space for each other to welcome disagreement, which is good, it's
Right.
healthy.
It's completely healthy. You can't have authenticity if you don't welcome the disagreement. We call it what, toxic positivity. If you are too afraid to share what's really on the table, you're never gonna get to the real solutions.
That is well said. 100% agree with that. And that's where the shift has started to occur is the space for the team. And it takes other team members willing to lean in that same way.
Right. Well,
You
I think
have to be on the same page.
so how do you make your team feel safe then? Because, we go on from self-doubt to safety, because I think this is really important because a team has to feel 100% safe in that space to be able to share authentically. How do you provide
It
that?
You have to lead from the front. I'll give a perfect example. There was uh, on my leadership team call yesterday, I led and I opened with something came up in my life. And if I'm off today, here's what it is. Here's what I'm working through. It's not work
Right.
related, but it is going to impact me today.
Okay.
And this is new news for me. And I just lay it out there. And then, I got the follow up text after, like, hey, I'm going through something similar. Or actually, someone on the call, like, I'm going through something very similar. And then the follow up text was, hey, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here.
Mhm.
I was so afraid, Michelle, to be vulnerable at work. I was so afraid to let my personal life influence my work life. And for me, the biggest shift I made was opening it up, be like, this is my life. This isn't work Jason and home Jason. This is Jason. I
Right.
am very fortunate that my office is 3 miles from my kid's school. My wife substitute teaches a ton. So I have the opportunity to show up, be present, drop my kids off, pick them up if I need to. It goes in the calendar. Like as soon as my wife picks up a job, that's in the calendar as I'm taking the kids to school or I'm picking them up. So I make sure that my priorities are just that, my priorities. So full circle back to the question, how do you make the team feel safe? They have to see the vulnerability up front and consistently to know that they can actually be vulnerable too.
Well, I think that's really important because I also was so afraid for a long time to show up with that vulnerability at work because I actually work with a chronic disease. I have heart disease. And there's been times when I've had to work from the hospital just because for a long time before we found out what it was a congenital heart defect. Before we found that, I was afraid to let anybody know that I was in the hospital because I didn't want them to think that I was sick. So I showed up as work Michelle and I showed up as personal Michelle until one day I just decided I'm going to be really honest and I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm just going to let them know. And I did. And all of a sudden, our HR person said, "We need to get you better health insurance." And it was like,
Bravo.
it's like, "Yeah, we need to help you with this." And I realized that day that showing up as myself, I was not work Michelle. I was not personal Michelle. I was just Michelle, just like you said. I'm Jason. And we're showing up and we've got to be authentic. And when you have that authenticity leads to safety. It leads to that safe environment. So I'm glad you have that because I know culture is really important to you. I know Malk has a great culture. I've heard it through the grapevine. What a great culture. So congratulations. I'm sure self-doubt it plays into that culture and safety and vulnerability. How does that play out just in your culture and how do you make people aware that they have the safety net to be vulnerable.
I'm going to share the cheat code for MALK on our culture and how we prioritize it and why we prioritize it.
Okay,
We talk about our
fantastic.
dreams. It's a simple dream
Amazing.
journal. And in this dream journal, and we've been doing this practice since December of 21. In this dreams journal, and there's a book, The Dream Machine, that it's based on. There are, I think, 9 different categories of what are your dreams, and they range anywhere from. Bu- 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 well, I'm gonna have to come back to those. What are your
It's okay.
travel desires? What are your action desire or your adventure desires? What are your personal health goals? What are your spiritual goals? What are your legacy goals? And we walk through anytime someone comes on board once a quarter. Now I run the call where I will do what we call a dream storming session. And we'll go by different categories and say, okay, for travel, here's some of my international travel. So from the very first time I did this, I had domestic travel finish all 50 states. I still have 5 left to go. Yellowstone National Park, Glacier National Park. There's a place called Leavenworth, Washington. It's a German town with incredible holidays. Michelle, I wrote this down in 2021. 3 weeks ago, my wife and I booked a trip there. So we'll check that off next year and take
Is
the
it
kids
Leavenworth?
for in February.
Is it
Leavenworth,
Leavenworth?
Washington.
Love
Yeah.
that place. It is such a cool, like, Christmas town. And it looks like
So
Christmas all year long.
that's amazing. And I learned about it just through dreamstorming. And then there's dream stealing. So you start to share it. I walk through a script of like, here's some things to think about. What is your desire, career wise, what are your objectives? Um, Financial career, the health one has been a big one for people at MALK. And then, I share all of mine. Like my dreams journal is there. We actually have an online iteration of it now. And we do that to say, we know that you're here to work hard and we appreciate your dedication to MALK. And we want to celebrate when you go to other stuff that's awesome. What's
That's
important
amazing.
to you that you are chasing? And I won't share names, but literally, we've got a Slack channel that's hashtag Dreams Wins. And then
Okay.
one of our team members just yesterday said, I have a dream on my dreams list of an ongoing dream to play chess with my kids once a week because we love doing it together. And we've had good runs in periods where we did not. It may be a small dream, but I decided though, I don't, even though I don't love leaving things sitting out, the best way to make sure we did it was to put it at the end of the table. So we walk by it every day. I can't tell you how many games of chess have been played in the last week alone.
That's amazing.
How great is that?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
we
balance too.
people can share from their heart, and there's times when someone achieves something spectacular that we've taken a little opportunity to lean into a dream. Our controller a few years ago is taking her daughter to Disneyland, so we, did a spot bonus to help them have a spectacular time. We can do little things like that as a small company, and it's fantastic.
I call them micro moments. Micro moments over time make up the big picture with culture. And so the dream Slack channel, those are celebrating the micro moments that make over time make up the big picture. But you're also leading with an outward mindset. You're seeing people as people with dreams and dreams just like your own, vulnerabilities just like your own. And so when you lead with that outward mindset, people who feel valued, they really start coming together to really move forward with the common goals and break the breakthroughs that can happen are just amazing. You know, you can get a brand to 100 million, 150 million, when you lead with this type of mindset in this type of culture.
It's about the people feeling safe to be vulnerable. There is, it happens in big CPG that people will hide the bad news and try to avoid sharing it.
Right. It happens all the
Bad
time.
news has to travel faster than good news.
It's so true. I have a saying, get in front of problems before they get in front of you. And, it's kind of like the captain on the ship calling out, hey, there's an iceberg ahead. Sometimes people don't want to see the iceberg, but you have to call it out. And you have to be able to have that vulnerability in that meeting to say, hey, I see a potential iceberg ahead. How are we going to get around it?
You know? And you
Yeah.
have to be willing, even as a leader, to say, I need some help with this. I signed up. I said I was going to do this. I have missed the boat, or I did not clearly understand what my team expected from me. I messed up, and being able to say that is freeing. When people think about bad news, they hang on to it, and it just weighs on them.
Right.
If you bring a problem, bring a solution. That has to be true as well. But bring
Absolutely.
the problem up. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, well, you can't fix anything that you don't know about, and you can't really you can't solve for problems that you don't know. So it's very important. I always say, just I don't want to be surprised. Just tell me if there's something ahead that we need to get in front of and we need to pivot. Like with my buyers, I have 15-minute touch base phone calls where I said it'll only take 15 minutes. I'm going to be off the phone in 15 minutes. And if we're not, it's your fault, not mine. And
Ha,
it's because I want to get in front of problems. I want to know if there's anywhere we need to pivot in the partnership. And there's never been a negative outcome with those meetings. So I think that, being able to pivot and know when to bring it up, don't be afraid to bring it up. Like it's so important. I think it's healthy, and I think it really tells a lot about someone's character when they're willing to say, "Hey, here's a problem. I need help with this," and then everybody can kind of jump in and find solutions.
team wins.
The team
This is a
completely wins.
team game that we're in the middle of with CPG.
Oh, it is a team game. Nobody wins alone, ever, ever. I want to get back to a little bit about self-doubt though, because I want to know, kind of dive deeper, because I know you said you struggled with self-doubt, but can you share a moment when self-doubt led to a breakthrough that you've had, recently or in the past?
Yeah, not so many years ago, I walked out of a board meeting, and it was rough. It was one of the roughest board meetings I'd ever been in.
Oh, wow.
And the truth is, I did not make sure my team was as prepared as we needed to be. I did not make sure that we were as cross-functionally as aligned as we should have been. And I didn't ensure that all of our financials were free of errors. So, as the CEO, that is my problem. What that taught me, though, what that is like, I walked out of it's like, how did I just really screw that up? Like that was a really bad meeting. And I've got a great board of directors. And I walked out of that with my head hung low and going, okay, what does this say about me? I need to lead differently. And it was also enlightening that I needed to transition some of my leadership at the same time. You know, there are teams that we build that are perfect for the season that we're in, and both sides grow. The company grows, the individual grows,
Mhm.
and change is a part of CPG. It is the hardest part because I love our people. I
Right.
love the team that we build. I love connecting and understanding the stories and, which kids are going to which, theme parks. And I love knowing that. And my job is to ensure that we are driving this company forward to the places that are on our long range plan. And you've got to make tough calls as leaders, but it's necessary if you want to have the opportunity to keep going in that direction.
Let me ask you this. When you have to make those tough calls and maybe let somebody go that you don't want to let go and make those changes, I know it takes a lot can take a lot out of you personally. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with those emotions? Because you
You
are
know,
human. You are human. That's the one thing I want everybody to know who's listening. Leadership, the C-suite and leadership, they're human, and they have all the same feelings that everybody else does.
yeah. And oftentimes, whether people realize it or not, we feel the burden. I always tell people, the number of individuals between spouses and kids that we support is not the number of employees, it's the families. And we're
Right.
well over 100 people that we impact on a day in, day out basis. So any change in that makeup is a burden that a leader feels. You said something earlier, Michelle, that I'm fascinated by. I think you called it adventure therapy, no, outdoor therapy,
Yeah, wilderness therapy. I was a
wilderness
wilderness
therapy.
therapy counselor before I found natural food. So
So as you said that, like, my heart jumped because for me to be able to do hard things, to be able to challenge myself, I need the times in the year where I can reset. I
Right.
need times in nature, quite frankly. That is my reset button. And
Mhm.
I'm fortunate. I live in Austin, Texas. We've got tons of trails, and it can be a
Right.
45-minute walk. I've got a park across the street from where I live. I can go walk in the park. I can go rent a kayak. I can be on town lake and get out there in the water and not even see downtown, even though it's right in front of downtown. I need that to reset myself to be able to process the emotions. And I have to process. And here's the reality. When leaders make decisions to make changes, that is when our clock begins to process the emotion. That action might not occur for weeks or maybe even months. So there are times that people look up and like, man, that leader just doesn't care about the change. And what I want people to understand is we've been carrying that burden and processing that emotion for weeks. And we are on the most likely on the exit path, and we have to be. Why do we have to be? Because we then have to hold space for other people to have their emotions in real time.
We call it, in wilderness therapy, we call it walkabout, and it's because on walkabout, when the Aborigines go on a walkabout in Australia, they take the boys, and the boys go from being boys to being men because of the growth that you experience when you're on the trail. And when you say getting out into nature, I recommend anybody who's listening to go take a hike. Af
Without your phone.
Without your phone, put it away, and just get into nature because silence is it's a huge flex because in silence you'll be able to come up with all the answers and hear everything you need to you'll come up with all the solutions, I promise you. So everybody take a hike, not in a bad way, but in a good way.
What used to be an insult is now a strong recommendation. Yeah,
Yes,
take a hike.
take a hike.
Uh, Michelle, the other thing that I found that helps me is finding the activity that allows me to release stress. And I've trained jujitsu for the last 7 years now. I've got a cold plunge at my house. I
Cool.
do hard things with intention because when I wake up in the morning and I cold plunge, and right now it's at like 45 degrees, if I'm in there for 3 minutes, that's hard.
It is
And I
hard.
get out, it's like, okay, it's anything I face today, I've probably just done the hardest thing.
Yeah,
And
how cold
for
is it?
me, 45, I've gone as low as 39.
That is
That's
low.
hard. Yeah,
That is hard. I love cold water and swimming in cold water, but that's cold. It's really
that's
cold.
chilly.
It is
And
chilly.
again, it's for small minutes. Like we've got here in Austin, Barton Springs. It's 68-degree year round, so it's a great resource. But find the activity, find that ability for you to relieve the stress instead of just carry it.
Right.
In jujitsu, you're literally fighting for your life. I mean, it is the best martial art for managing stress, in my opinion, because you're in a battle, however long you're learning how to do the battle differently, but you're in a battle for your life and you can't think about work. You can't think about that email. You can't think about the board meeting. You are in that moment, and the ability to walk out of there and have my stress levels lower is game changing.
I love that you brought up jujitsu. I find the martial arts just fascinating, and I belong to an actual MMA gym, but I'll do boxing there. I don't get into jujitsu, but so with jujitsu, it's you're using your opponent's weight against them. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So I'm just trying to think of a metaphor for how to use your opponent, like whatever's coming at you, that weight of it against them, against the issue, and turning it around and getting out of that. So I mean, I love the martial arts. I love MMA fighting. I find it absolutely fascinating. If I was 18 again, I probably would want to train as an MMA fighter. It's just those athletes are so incredibly trained. It's just incredible, the athleticism. So, anyway, I know we got
Well,
off.
I want to double click on that though. As we think about be it jujitsu, be it martial arts, I have this conversation with my daughter. When there's something said, she has 3 options. She can absorb it, she can reflect it back to him and say, "Did you actually mean to say this?" Or you can refract it and just let it bounce off you. And
Right.
the same thing with jujitsu. You can absorb the pressure, you can refract it and change it, or you can reflect back, mirror, and, match to protect yourself. So there's different ways, but in everything we do, you have the choice. And that's what we forget. The beautiful power that we have of making a choice. Make the
Yeah,
choice. Guess what? If you're wrong, change it.
yeah, you have free agency to make the choices, and you get to choose the consequences of those choices.
100%.
So that's great. Last question that I want to ask you is, what advice would you give other founders or leaders in CPG who may be struggling, whether it be with self-doubt, imposter syndrome? Maybe they have, I call it the curd in the culture right now. How would you, what advice would you give to them? Because I know MALK Organics has an amazing culture. I've been told that by many people. So I would love to hear your advice because CPG can use it.
So I've talked around this many times, but I'll try to sum it up in a one liner. Find the activity, the space, or the moment that helps you to get still. Because as a leader, if you never slow down, you'll never hear the truth through all the noise.
Be still, get still. Oh, I love that because being still is being in silence with yourself, and in silence with yourself, you get the answers. You can hear kind of that gut feeling, that survival instinct inside, that inner voice. So important. Jason, thank you so much for coming on CPG Therapy and talking with me today and helping out the CPG community. Much gratitude. Thank you so much. Do you have any last words?
No, Michelle, I want to reiterate how impactful and powerful the work that you're doing with this is to help others out there. You're not alone. We're out here with you. We're doing this together. Find your community of other founders, leaders, humans that you enjoy being around. Because if you just try to do the one thing by yourself, it's too lonely. Let's go have fun together.
Absolutely. Find your Wilsons and be still. So, all right. Thank you, Jason, so much. What great insight and what a great opportunity to be able to take a look into the culture of MALK Organics, one of the best and most successful brands in our industry. Thank you so much to you, Jason, for sharing yourself and a little bit about MALK's culture with our CPG community. We're all out there swinging and going down on the mat, fighting to get our brand on shelf. And there's a lot that goes on mentally and internally that we struggle with. And this shows to let you guys know that you're not alone. And as Jason said, you're not alone. Leadership, founders, all of that can be lonely, and we all struggle with self doubt. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Hey, you guys, I'm looking for guests. If you know anybody else like Jason that wants to take a topic and be a guest, I've got 15 episodes planned and I need 12 more people. And also, I am looking for sponsors for the show because I'm self funding this right now. I want to keep this going because I believe the CPG community needs a little therapy and we need to feel seen. And I want you guys to feel seen and heard and connected with the CPG community. And I want us to help build a better culture one micro moment at a time. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Michelle Sheely with CPG Therapy. Email me at michelle@cpgtherapy.com. Y'all have a great rest of your week. Peace out.